Yeah, I've been thinking about this tune, Sweet Georgia Brown, because one of my students recently asked me this question, and I get this kind of question. It's the kind of question you get when you teach music. Uh, okay, let's say I have E7. What scale should I play over E7? So seems like you're all tuned in here. What scale would you think to play over E7? Uh, there's no wrong answer. So if you have an idea, just shout it out. Shout it out. Type it out. What scale do you play over E7? Right. E Mixolydian or A major, right? A major is the parent scale. E Mixolydian is the mode. That's a really good. So there's a consensus. Lucas and David and Ashan all are leaning towards E Mixolydian. So let's see what that sounds like. That sounds pretty good. Right. Any other? Oh, yeah. Glenn Michael Thompson says E major pentatonic. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, that sounds good too. E major pentatonic. Okay, well then let's dig a little deeper. Why does E Mixolydian sound good over E7? Why there's such a consensus? So it seems like it's not controversial. So why does that sound good? What's going on? Ooh, Glenn is getting. I like that. Upper structure triads. That's cool. Well, people are typing in their logic for why that sounds good. I'm going to try the A and B major triads. Actually, I don't love it as much as I thought I would, because B has a D sharp in it, and we're playing over E7. So I might try A major and B minor. So A major and B minor, that makes a little more sense, especially if we're talking about E Mixolydian. If you want to have two major triads, you could try E and D. Right? Yeah. So Nicholas and Glenn Michael, yeah, the upper structure idea is you look at what the scale is that we're going to choose. So let's say E Mixolydian, and we could choose two triads. I suppose in theory you could choose more than two, but generally when people talk about using upper structure triads, we very often use triad pairs. So that's two triads. You could really use any two triads that you find in the E Mixolydian mode. So what are those triads? The triads available are E, F sharp minor, G sharp diminished, A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, and E. So any of those could work. There's a certain niceness to having two of the same type of triad, so either two majors or two minors. So if we want two major triads, we could use E and D. So I'm just basically running the D and E triads on the high three strings. But you could move more across the strings. So that's E, D, E, D, E, D, E. So I kind of broke it up there a little bit. And it doesn't have to sound so triady. You've got 6 notes out of those, D, F sharp, A, E, G sharp, B. You could certainly play a melody with those notes. If you alphabetize them. But if you play them as triads, that's what you get. So that's D and E. If you wanted to have minor sounds, you could have B minor and C sharp minor. And I'm not being super strict about that. I'm using maybe a couple other notes in there as well, but that's the idea. So either E and D, if you want to stick with two major triads, or B minor, C sharp minor, if you want to use minor triads, or you could mix it up. There's no rule that says you have to use two of the same type, but it makes it easier on your hands because you don't have to think of two different shapes, and makes it easier on your brain, and maybe a little easier on people's ears as well. So just to see what happens, I'm going to try a major and a minor. So I'll try E major, F sharp minor. That's cool too. So experiment. So that's the basic idea of using these upper structure triads. You're just choosing two triads from the parent scale and trying to make lines out of those. The reason that I'm always picking two that are right next to each other, you may wonder, like, well, D and E are next to each other, B minor and C sharp minor are next to each other, E major, F sharp minor. Why am I always picking two that are adjacent? And the reason for that is that if you pick two from a scale and they're right next to each other in the scale, then you won't have any common tones. And usually that's what we're going for. When we're doing triad pairs, is to avoid any commonality, so that you have two triads that have no notes in common. And the trick to that is to pick two that are right next to each other.